So today we are doing Blur versus Oasis 2, The Great Escape versus What's the Story Morning Glory. Sorry for the wait. Next.
We have Jared.
Jared.
I'm here. Yes.
Ray.
You, me, and him.
KP. I'm going to kind of be the mediator here for the Rays review.
I don't think I don't.
Yes.
Here we go.
I don't. Yeah.
The albums are Ray.
I already said, Dad. I already
Blur
said the albums
with
That-
The Great Escape and Oasis
with
What's the Story Morning Glory.
Excellent.
Both classics.
Well,
One of them is definitely slightly more classic, but we'll get there.
The Great Escape.
Do you want to tell a story about them? Like, okay,
Yes.
what's the story
Jared
with the
will
Great
start
Escape?
with the first, with pretty much the blueprint of the story.
These two bands are wild. They had their moment in the sun. And months after 1994, Oasis released their new single, Some Might Say, that reached number 1 on the UK charts. The frontman of Blur, Gorillaz, you might know him from Gorillaz as well, Damon Albarn, decided that he would go to the celebration to congratulate Oasis. Damon said, "When I went to their celebration party, just to say well done, Liam comes over and says, number effing 1 right in my face. So I thought, okay, we'll see." And I think it's indicative of the Oasis guys that he went over there, that Damon Albarn went over there with genuine intentions, and they were immediately rude to him.
Right.
For no reason.
Right.
I think that was Noel. No, that was Liam. Liam went over there, and I imagine it was kind of drunkenly slurred,
Oh, absolutely.
so he can barely make out the. But making a very long story not really short, something leads to something, and both bands have their albums set in autumn of 1995. The Great Escape set in September, and Morning Glory set in October. Both bands could release their albums unharmed by the other album.
Absolutely.
However, the singles are a different story. Roll With It was set on the 14th of August. Blur would release Country House a week from Roll With It. Unintentionally. I don't know if it was unintentionally, but it was probably unintentionally.
No chance.
If it was coming from Blur, it was almost certainly unintentional. But if it was coming from Oasis, it was 100% intentional and with malice.
But Blur would then move the release date to Oasis, because what happens with singles is usually the single last week, it usually stays a little long, even if Blur had, in Damon's word, had a good crack at it. Even if Blur had a good crack at it, they couldn't have topped Roll With It. So they had to remove the release date to the same day. And on that day, Blur beat Oasis by 58,000 copies.
Pretty hefty.
Well,
Depending on how...
some of the people that bought Roll With It probably also bought,
Valid point. There was definitely some crossover.
However, the albums are just a completely different story. And I mean that in the nicest way, Great Escape got good sales. It got instantly to number 1, But dude,
that
What's
being
the Story
said,
Morning Glory? It became the number 4 best-selling album in UK.
It was an instant classic.
In UK history. Let me put that
In perspective.
in perspective. It has defeated Fleetwood Mac's Rumours, Michael Jackson's Bad and Thriller, both, and Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon.
That's how instant of a classic it was.
Most of the albums that beat Morning Glory are greatest hits collections from the likes of ABBA and Queen.
Which I don't think is super fair to count in a lot of these ways.
So
but I do get it.
in a way that's fair, the only album to have beaten What's the Story Morning Glory is in fact Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
That's fair. That makes sense.
But that also means they beat like every other Beatles album.
Also,
Which is crazy.
You got to think too. All those albums have 10, 20, 30-year jumps on it. Like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band's been being sold for decades.
Yeah, so they had 30 years to get all those
correct.
sales,
That's
and
crazy.
it still blew past them. I know. It's
Well,
wild.
one thing that probably, dude, do you remember Oasis being that big?
I do remember they weren't crazy like that here though. It was just like, they're really crazy over there, and then, they had hits here. Everything they did was a hit here, but it wasn't.
as a whole album, and like a cultural movement, like it was over there. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah, but again, the releases were hits. Supernova, all those.
Wonderball.
Don't Look Back in Anger. Like I told Ray the other day, I listened to this album on the way to work. I'm walking around work, and not Wonderwall, not Supernova. Don't Look Back in Anger was being played on regular alt radio at work. You know what I mean? And we're 25 years removed from that album being released. Is that right?
That sounds right. You said 1995, yeah?
1995, yeah.
Pretty
24,
good
25.
for good for 3 or 4 songs off an album to still be getting played.
You can play the whole album.
Right.
The whole album's great.
Right.
Dude,
okay, go ahead.
did you buy this record when it dropped, or?
No.
Okay.
I never
No.
listened to it all the way through till this. I'd listened to the hits. I'd heard. Now I did work with a guy that had it. So when there was a place that I worked where we played it at work some.
So you almost certainly heard almost all of it.
Right.
But
I had
you-
not
yeah.
sat down and listened to the whole thing in a row on purpose. But my
Yeah.
buddy had it. And we listened
Now,
to it in his car.
now I know for a fact you didn't listen to Great Escape when it dropped, because they just weren't big at all in America.
I don't know that I listened to any Blur on purpose until you brought these 2 albums in. And I feel like I'm better for the experience. Like significantly better for the experience.
Well, I feel like Blur never got. The
Well-
reason Oasis were
They didn't leave
the
the
reason
old island like the rest of them.
the
They
reason-
had one song they did with Song 2. That
Song
got big,
2, it's-
but that was it.
that
in their whole
and that was the
discography.
least Blur song.
And it's not anything like anything else they've released.
And
It's
I
weird.
feel like the reason Oasis kind of beat Blur is because they had universal appeal.
I would say that's 100% true.
Blur almost had an exclusively British.
It did, and I say
know.
it's maybe slightly less prevalent on this album, which I think would have increased their appeal. But the fact that Oasis released again, instant classic. This album, unbelievably good. Not that Great Escape is bad in any means, absolutely not.
Well,
but, man,
Not only I like Great Escape.
I like
And
Great
liked
Escape
it as
quite
an
a lot.
album. But it's everything Parklife was at a whisper.
I would somewhat disagree, but I get what you're saying.
And while every now and then you got a Universal or a Country House, sometimes you had tracks that were just kinda there.
I think that was my issue, where I just feel like the whole album, conceptually, is really good, but it's just a little diluted. It's a little long.
And I understand if from my last review you'd think that I didn't like Parklife. I love Parklife. All right, but every track on Parklife, you could probably name off the track listing of Parklife and not forget a song. If you've known them for long enough, but you can't really do that for Great Escape.
No, I'm looking through the track list, and there's some that I'm just oh man, I thought that was grouped in with another song. And I feel like a lot of these could be kind of condensed a little bit. Maybe Arnold Same and Top Man or something like that. But I absolutely get what you're saying.
Okay, now on with the questions.
Which album has a better opener?
That's Stereotypes versus
Hello.
Hello. Ooh, Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
It's Hello.
It's,
I'm not huge on Stereotypes.
Stereotypes is it's one of those tracks that's there, and
Yes.
that's kind of a problem to have as an opener.
Again, I really
know?
like the album conceptually, and as a whole it feels
I like
very
the
cohesive.
album, but I kind of believe that Country House should have opened.
Yeah, that would have been a much stronger starter. Absolutely. So I'm going with Hello.
Yes, hello. Hello.
That's the one.
I like Stereotypes better.
Like
Which album
Stereotypes
has a better closer?
Oh, no, I would like to hear your explanation for that.
I
You
just
just liked it better? That's fair. Yeah.
A lot of what y'all are saying about this album is kind of. It feels like it's funny because he mixes so much into it, like you said with the Park Life, right? It's Park Life is a bunch of different sounds, but every song is so distinctive.
Yes.
Whereas this is it's a bunch of different sounds, but you can feel the Gorillaz forming as
Oh.
you're listening to it.
This whole time between these last two albums, that I've just been like, man, I really want to listen to Gorillaz after I hear this, because I'm like, I feel like a lot of the vibe and just the kind of loneliness in modern life moved on to Gorillaz.
Well, what
and
I
was-
think what kind of
that's what Gorillaz
made
was,
Right.
early Gorillaz.
what kind of made Gorillaz is Oasis in for a better not I don't know this for a fact, but I think what kind of created Gorillaz was Oasis stomping Blur into the ground, and they're kind of getting kind of Gorillaz-y in these later albums. You know,
and then he decides to take that after
and
he's
then-
like, man,
and then the band gets in a heated problem, and then Gorillaz happens while the band's taking a break.
Also,
you know.
I think he was wanting to take. He seems really creative. Like I said, he mixes instruments almost like sounds, and it to me this creates like this whole thing flows like one thing, right? So when you say all the songs run together, I think, yeah, that's what he was.
that's fair. Yeah,
That was the
absolutely.
point. The point was we're riding around and I'm taking you on one journey, and instead of having all the different noises and all the different instruments that he's utilizing, separating it, here it
It's
unifies it.
I get what you're saying. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's a strange trip for me. But also you can just feel, like I almost feel like too, he's so creative that maybe the band was arguing over the fact that to some degree they weren't quite what they wanted to be, even though they were still great. And then he meets a couple of cats that want to go on a different kind of ride.
He's like, hey.
And he's willing to do that because that's what he does anyway, right? So that turns into that. But let's move on. Which album had the better closer?
Champagne Supernova by a landslide.
I liked Yuko and Hero better.
I
really liked
Really?
Yuko and Hero.
I felt like
it's
you go-
interesting,
Champagne
right?
Supernova is super good, and don't get me wrong, but I just like as an end to that album, the emotions it conveys
Yuko and
are
Hero
so
are the-
Also,
good.
that track stands out separately. from the
Yuko and
rest of the record.
Hero
Yes.
is the one with all the noises, right?
There is a very long
It's a very
instrumental.
slow, and he
I got
tells
I
the
got
story of two and his affection for them, and or lack thereof, that kind of thing. The melancholiness
Just like
of it. Yeah.
being disconnected despite being together,
Right.
and which was like a concept over the whole album that was just like the loneliness that comes with modern life, and we're all connected to each other, and we still just can't. We have to fill the void with stuff, which
Right.
was the big theme on the album. But
Correct,
it was
correct.
I felt it would really encapsulated it here in this last little bit.
Of course. Okay. I like Supernova, but let's move on to what is your least favorite song on both albums?
I don't feel like I have a least favorite song on
Yeah, for What's the Story, Morning Glory, not like none of the songs are like particularly weak. I would think it would be hard for me to pick one that's like I like some better, but it's hard
Dude,
for me to pick one that's like
because I feel like all of the songs on What's the Story, Morning Glory, even the weak ones, they grew on me. Like I didn't like Hey Now at first. That song grew on me. I didn't like Roll With It at first. That song grew on me. Heck, I didn't like Cast No Shadow at first. That song grew big time. And
yeah, I don't think I can pick a weak one on Oasis's album.
All right, go to the other one.
Blur, probably one of the ones I skipped.
Mr. Wow, thorough. Mr. Robinson's Quango, just because that's like I had to look up what Quango meant.
I'd
What
probably
does Quango mean?
Quango is a British body that has a small amount of power devoted to it by Parliament, usually on a specific issue or area. It's like a cushy job that a politician would get his friend.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And because of that, it's all right. I don't know. The song itself isn't my favorite.
All right. What's your favorite song on both albums?
Ooh, that's tough.
on Oasis, on What's the Story, Morning Glory, I'd probably have to give you like 5 of my favorites.
I'm gonna go ahead and say there's only like 8 songs. There's like 7 songs on the album. Top 5 out of 7. For me, it would probably be "Don't Look Back in Anger."
Me too.
Really liked it.
Me too. I liked it a lot.
I just like the vibe of it, and then just what its song was talking about.
Yeah.
Then you're like leaving out "Cast No Shadow," and
I love "Casting No Shadow." That's probably number 2.
and "Champagne Supernova," and the really cool deep cut called "Wonderwall."
Yes,
It's a really good deep cut, really
Yes.
underground.
As for
But
"Don't Look Back in Anger" is just so like.
I just feel like I need that in my life in a lot of ways.
Isn't that something we all strive to
Absolutely.
achieve? Is to be able to figure out a way to take something that has built angst in you and turn it into a learning experience and move through it.
Don't look back with anger. I mean, that's I just need that. you
Right,
know?
right, and it's a melancholy approach to the whole crisis, and it's something that I feel like Anyway, so what was your favorite on the other album?
probably
I like Best Days,
and
and
I
he,
feel
he
like
thought of Cars.
I
In
really
addition,
maybe-
like "Charmless Man."
I like Charlie.
I like Quango too.
I-
It's
I-
funny that you didn't like it. It's
I'd
good though.
probably
It's not that I didn't hate it, but it was just like a step lower. You know?
I got you.
Oh, did I least my least favorite track on Blur?
Either one.
Did I
What's your least favorite?
Arnold Same?
Or same.
That is a skip.
What was your favorite, sir?
My favorite on Blur, it'd probably be the Universal.
The Universal also excellent choice.
Right. Okay, best vocals.
Best vocals.
It's kind of tough. I felt like they were both good at what they were trying to convey. You know what I mean?
I get
I
it.
feel like
I do just again really like Gorillaz, so Damon Albarn, I just slip into his voice, just ready to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
but I also feel like
I would probably say Liam Gallagher.
I liked Liam Gallagher's vocals on here better, but I think his vocals on here are a step down from his vocals on Definitely Maybe. I just liked his baby vocals.
I get what you're saying. Absolutely.
Just
And there's some arena rock there, you know what I mean? So
well, I also think it might be the effects on Liam's voice.
Yeah.
Because there was probably a lot of loudness, but I do feel like Liam's vocals are just so powerful.
He doesn't really need anything like that. Literally, just put his voice on the
it's
track.
distinctive enough, right?
Yeah.
All right, now production. You ask about production.
Production.
I would probably say, "What's the Story, Morning Glory."
What's the story? Yeah, because What's the Story, Morning Glory? The entire album is kind of built. The entire band is built on this production, and
What do you mean by that?
it's because it's such a unique type of they are literally made to be as loud as they physically can before mixing.
Oh yeah, I had to like turn it down from when I was listening to Blur, just because it was just loud. And then, again, that's totally fine. That's the
And
sound.
I feel like that's just so unique, and it Oasis has now trademarked that.
That's
You
theirs.
can't use that, and then it's like when you use like, and this is gonna sound weird, but it's like when you like in a logo like Korn's backwards R. That's Korn's thing now.
Toys R Us can't have it.
Toys R Us. Toys R Us.
That's too distinct to count it as the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, if you use a backwards R in your logo, that's a cool
But like
thing.
the like the what's the other one? But you know what I'm saying, right?
I get what you're saying.
It's so distinctive
And
and,
I feel-
so Oasis.
I feel like on this album, from Definitely Maybe, this is really where they got their sound. Because with Definitely Maybe, I felt like
I feel like with
there
Definitely
were some times where I felt like they weren't more than their influences.
I feel like on Definitely Maybe the point is to more be raw and kind of more emotional.
But you're saying definitely maybe you can hear the influences.
with
What's the story you can hear?
it's seamless.
Oasis.
This
Right.
I feel like they really have purely their own sound. at
Captured
this
who
point.
they are.
Yes,
I-
this-
Not trying
this-
to be somebody else.
Yes, this is Oasis. This,
Right.
and when I listened to this and I was like, I saw them clearly.
Right.
This is who they are.
Right.
I
what
kinda-
they want me to believe.
Loud.
Right.
I kind of get it. I think Definitely Maybe is kind of a bad. I think What's the Story Morning Glory is the place to start if you want to listen to Oasis. Definitely Maybe is the next step. Because, and I've noticed this with a lot of people who listen to Definitely Maybe next usually like Definitely Maybe more. People who
That's fair.
listen to What's the Story Morning Glory next usually like What's the Story Morning Glory more. And I think it's a first impression thing.
Absolutely. Dude, impressions matter on a lot of stuff.
Well, and two, when you're listening to Oasis, you know what? This goes into the next thing because you kind of talked about mixing when you talked about production.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go into which album did you enjoy the most, and I guess you both have said that you enjoy What's the Story Morning Glory
Yes.
the most. But I
Kind
think,
of.
Go ahead.
It's close at the very least because What's the Story Morning Glory is just all good. It's so good. I listen to What's the Story Morning Glory. I could just throw it on the radio and listen to it, and I'm just like, man, everything on here is awesome. But if I'm in a certain kind of mood, The Great Escape is perfect for me. In that
Well, I
scenario.
feel like if you're in a mood for The Great Escape, you would be better off listening to Park Life.
I would somewhat disagree. but
Well, at least me. You know,
I might
don't-
listen to, but I don't know, because I feel like Park Life. Well, okay, let's say I feel like The Great Escape was a more universal experience. That is still true. Oh, I knocked something over. It's a more universal experience that is still true in a lot of ways today about like being connected but still being lonely and apart. Like the He Thought of Cars song, where it's just like you just want to drive somewhere but you don't have anyone to do it with. I feel that constantly.
right.
Like stuff
Right.
like that where it's still relevant today. And Park Life feels more like a British thing, you know?
Right.
Or at the very least like a city thing.
As well, when like there's a thing where you go, you know, the sum of the parts, right? And when you listen to this album from Blur, the sum of the parts is better than the individual parts.
Yes, that is actually
Whereas
100% yes.
Whereas the Oasis album, when you come to this Oasis album that's 25 years old, you already know 4 songs, 3 of which by heart. You know what I mean? So you already have kind of
Experience.
a lead into it. So you're in a way you're kind of cheating to begin with, right? But the parts are so very good. But it's a much in my see I prefer if I was to say which album's better, I would say the Blur album is better, right? But it's nowhere near as spectacular as. You see what I'm saying?
it
It's
depends
strange,
on what you value
right?
and what you personally get from an album.
As an album,
Oasis
to me,
and here's a lyrical thing I need to bring up. Oasis, you can never really, they're talking about something important, but you can never really find out what. You can't
that's why I
quite
think
pin it down.
the voice fills in because Liam Gallagher's voice absolutely adds credence to these abstract lyrics, and I feel it even if I don't understand it. I feel it with his voice.
It's very
Right.
poetic in a
Yes.
sense.
And I'm just like,
Right.
yes, faster, slower than a cannonball. I have no idea what that means. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But I feel it.
But to me, though, the Oasis album feels like a series of chapters. They don't necessarily have to be in the same book.
That's fair.
The Blur is a book. The album is a book.
I would.
You see what I'm saying?
I would disagree. If you switch out one song in What's the Story Morning Glory, the entire flow is screwed up. You can't flip Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger. You can't flip Some
No,
Might
you
Say.
definitely can't flip those two.
No, yeah.
You
I would
can't
say that.
Those two songs are perfect together. That
Yes,
little
facts.
9 minutes or
You can't
12 minutes,
You
whatever
can't
that is,
flip
perfect.
She's Electric and Some Might Say. You can't flip Hey Now and Morning Glory. You especially can't flip Champagne Supernova with anything.
No, Champagne Supernova is an album ender for sure.
I don't really feel like it would work if you did that.
Okay. Excellent.
Because people
Yes.
tend to, and when you said least favorite, I thought you were gonna say She's Electric.
No, I like She's Electric.
Well, what's so great about She's Electric and is that it's to clean. It's to build up for Morning Glory.
Cleanse the palate.
To cleanse the palate and to cleanse the palate after all you just witnessed, and we're gonna hit you with Morning Glory and Champagne Supernova.
Strong finish to that album for sure.
And I don't
It's
really
a headlock.
It gets you. Dude, pacing is important in all things.
Gotta let it breathe.
Gotta let it breathe. In
Right.
wrestling, in
Write a stinker
music.
and put it right there at song 7.
Well, let's not. No, I would not. I wouldn't describe it as a stinker
I'm just kidding.
by any means.
I'm just kidding. So you both liked the Oasis album better.
Yeah.
But you
It's
you
close.
particularly get in mood. That's what I was
It's
saying.
close.
Is even if you don't like the Blur album on the level that you like the way, like even say like somebody doesn't ride the same road that I'm riding on. I feel like even they should kind of need to admit that it's a lot closer than you would think when you first get these two records put in front of you.
Yes.
Say compare the two. You know what I mean? So
It's closer than you'd think, but I don't
Not
think
for
it's
you, it's
necessarily fair.
So now what Oasis album do you have me listening to this week? And what am I comparing it to?
What? Oh, here's a good idea.
What's the
let's
ne-
compare.
no, what's the
let's
next-
compare Be Here Now and Van Halen 3.
There you go. There
Both
you go.
killed consecutively different careers.
Now,
But
what?
tomorrow, next
What is
week.
our next?
Next week, Jared picked out Tool's Anima versus Deftones' White Pony.
I know not very much about.
You know nothing about either.
I know nothing. Well, okay, I've at least listened to a couple Tool songs,
I feel like you'd like.
but I feel,
I feel
like, are they
I feel
one
like
of those bands that has like
they pretty
a
much
big difference
they
between
pretty
them?
much invented math rock.
Yes, I do like math rock. I have
But-
listened to more
but, like,
recent
dude,
math rock, so I feel like
You
I like
would
it.
love Lazarus. You
Yes.
would love that. Is
that
a
off of-
math.
Is that an album or is that a song?
That's an That's an album. That's an
Okay.
entire album. That's just math. Just there's so much math. It makes you feel smart listening to it.
Is Lazarus the one that has like the golden ratio? What is it called? I can't think of it. There's
you're
one of
think-
their albums that has like a certain mathematical concept.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Oh
it.
yeah.
That's it.
I've heard a lot about it.
Lazarus is just a math thing. Oh, we're still
So-
recording. We're still recording an episode, aren't we?
Yeah.
I was wondering if you wanted to wrap this up.
Oh,
or
yeah,
just
we're
start talking
gonna-
about math.
I know nothing about math.
I love math, numbers and all that.
That's what math. It's a lot of numbers,
Letters sometimes.
shapes.
Shapes.
So we're just gonna completely let this fall apart.
Okay, now
by the last 2
let's
minutes.
wrap this thing up.
Yeah. For Jared,
For me.
for
KP.
okay. And for me, we'll see you next week, hopefully. Bye.
Copyright 2020 Ray's Reviews.
Hi.